I'm Eve Salazar and you are watching tutorial number 6. So this is our last tutorial. I hope that you have enjoyed these tutorials. And this last tutorial I'm going to combine a mental and physical warm-up. But before I do that, I want us just to take a minute to connect to our concentration and our awareness. So the most important part about a movement practice is actually the mental part of the practice. And in the early tutorials like 1 through 4, I focused on movement, on exercises, on ways to make your movement work for you if you had other issues in modifying exercises, progressing exercises. And that's important. We want to understand the exercises, we want to have a grasp of the exercises, but we can't even get that far without cultivating mindfulness and the ability to focus. And what I sometimes see is there are individuals I've worked with for a long period of time, and every now and then some of the basics get a little lost. And so what needs to happen when we have a long-term commitment to movement is that we have a long-term commitment to progression and progressing in exercise and progressing in our practice. And what starts to happen is if we stop cultivating our ability to concentrate, then we stop cultivating our ability to progress in our practice. So the first exercise we're going to do in this video is I want you to sit in a comfortable position. So find your position, and we're going to sit together. And for a minute, I want you to focus in on your body and nothing else, okay? And I'll let you know when it's time to come back. So for the next minute, we're going to be quiet together and we're going to just focus on our own body. Ready? Begin. Okay, welcome back. So how did that feel? And these are the questions I want you to ask yourself. 1, how did it feel? 2, was it easy or challenging to stay completely focused in on your body? How often did you, like for example, the gardener showed up across the street. So for a moment, my brain flitted to, oh, here comes the leaf blower. There's the weed whacker. And then it was like, nope, redirect, bring the mind back to the body. What are you feeling in your body? Are you noticing where your breath is? I was noticing that my breath was dropping down into my belly quite comfortably. I also noticed that my right shoulder feels a little bit up and forward compared to my left shoulder. And these aren't judgments, they're simply being curious. What I like to call them are actually our curious assessments. So can you take your curiosity into your body and really start to cultivate awareness and assess what you're feeling in your body? That's number 1. That's what you need more than knowing how do I breathe during this exercise, or can I lift my leg high enough in this exercise? Because you can't know where the breath is if you can't concentrate on where the breath is happening now, so that we know how to redirect the breath. So that cultivating of concentration is where I wanted to leave you with these 6 tutorials, because that's the most important, and that's where I see students actually struggle the most in their ability to progress, even in one-on-one sessions, because often what starts to happen is we allow the teacher to be our brain. It's like, no, the teacher's counting. No, the teacher's going to tell me when to go to the next side. However, if you were deeply connected, and what I love is when I hear those clients say, okay, that was 10, I'm like, okay, good, you've been counting. You're aware of what's happening. You're fully engaged. because my job is not to count for you. And does it matter whether we've done exactly 10 on this side and exactly 10 on that side? I don't believe so. And you're not going to hurt yourself if you do 12 on one side and 10 on the other. It's arbitrary sometimes, the numbers. Now, if you did like 35 on one side and 5 on the other side, you're probably going to feel an imbalance, right? So we do want to have a similar experience on both sides of the body. But when we get into some of the minutia of counting, that's where I don't find it to be that important. What's more important even than knowing how many reps we've done is knowing what's going on inside your body. The other thing I love is when a student has gotten so lost in her body and I say 10, she's like, oh, and it's like they're surprised that we're at the end because you're so into the exercise, you're so focused, we almost get caught off guard. That's what I love. When I'm in my yoga practice and the teacher's like, okay, we're moving on to the other side, it's like, oh, right. It almost brings you back to the moment because you got so connected into what it was you were doing, you lost track of the reps. So that's really how the work kind of progresses mentally too, right? So at first we're really aware of how many we're doing because it's so challenging to do it, right? And then at some point you stop focusing on how many you're doing and you start focusing on the quality of your doing. So I would encourage you to shift to focus on the quality of your doing. And with that, let's do a little exercise together. So you can do this exercise either in a chair, and I recommend a sturdy chair if you're doing this at home. I'm sitting on a Pilates ball and I've got my feet kind of pressed against something on the floor so that I don't feel wobbly. I feel really sturdy and I've got some movement in my hips, but I'm just going to drop the camera a little bit so you can see sitting on the ball. The first thing we're going to do is curl the pelvis. And if you're sitting on a ball, it helps because the ball can move with you. If you're sitting on a chair, you just tuck your tailbone, you'll contract back. I'm going to put my hands on the thighs with the elbows wide. Okay? Now starting from the tailbone, from the sits bones, I'm going to stack my spine going up. Okay, but I'm starting at the pelvis. So if you're on a hard chair, your pelvis comes back up. Okay, I'm going to move back actually a little bit. That'll be even better. You can see it even better. So, crown of the head, sitting on my ball. I'm going to start at the tailbone. Inhale, exhale, tuck that tailbone under. Inhale, exhale, pull in that low belly. My head is starting to come forward because my spine is coming together anterior. I'm rounding my back. And I'm going to stack from the sits bones. So have an awareness of those sits bones. Push down. Feel that belly tighten to make that happen. And then you inhale, you let that go. Exhale, re-engage. Inhale, relax. Exhale, re-engage. Inhale, relax. Exhale, re-engage. Inhale. I'm up here now. Exhale. Inhale. And I press my head gently against my imaginary wall or pedipole. So you could do that after the video several more times. So we could do that 10, 15, 20 times. If we really wanted to feel it, we would do more, right? So if you want to feel more, you got to do more. So just those logical conclusions to movement. I think sometimes what happens is we're like, okay, I've done 8. Well, did you feel those 8? Because if that was too easy for you, you got to 8 and you're like, oh good, that wasn't so bad. If in your mind you're thinking, well, that wasn't so bad, you could probably do 12, right? Or do 8 and add a ball, or do 8 and add a circle, or do 8 and add a foam roller, or a TheraBand. Give it some feedback is ultimately what I'm saying. So we want to start adding that feedback, and then you can take the feedback away once you've gotten used to that feedback and see if you can then maintain that sense of feedback. So those are more ways in which we progress exercise, because ultimately the goal is to become independent at this and to have a practice where you can go take classes easily, you can do other athletic things easily and comfortably, and then you do privates to check in, you do privates to refine, you do privates because, you know, something has shown up that you can't clear on your own. So here's the next exercise we're going to do together. We're going to bring the feet together and take the arms out to the sides of your chair. Flip your palms out. Feel that rotation all the way up here in the shoulder. And then roll the arms in and flip the palms out the other way. Okay? So palms turn in to flip out. Palms turn in to flip back. Feeling that rotation of the arm bone all the way from the top. So this part of my arm is moving this part. So sometimes when you hear the cue, okay, rotate your hand. Well, I'm not just moving the hands, right? We're rotating the arm to move the hand. And feel that opening across the collarbones when we're here. Feel that opening across the back and the other side when we're here. Remembering as you inhale to create space and relax. And when you exhale, that's when you find that engagement in the belly. So, why did I pick this arm exercise? It could be any exercise, really. The point was to feel a movement while you were allowing the breath to pump in and pump out. So awareness is 1, breath is 2 in terms of like the order we want to get connected. So we have to mentally get connected. Then we can start to focus on the number 1 important thing, which is the breathing. And then we think of the breathing as moving the muscles, and then the muscles move the bones. So that's really the step-by-step, the Pilates recipe, so to speak, okay? So you've got your mental focus and awareness and concentration. You connect that concentration and focus to your breath. You connect the breath to the muscular movement. The muscular movement pulls and changes the bony rhythm or location. And that's the order we want to move in. Sometimes what I see is that people will start to brace on the inhale. Okay, so that's not what we want. You don't want to inhale and then feel like you're making your body tight as a drum. So the other thing we want to talk about is efficiency in movement. And efficiency and strength are 2 different things. And I know I'm covering quite a few topics in this video, but this is our last one together. Don't worry, there are more videos on YouTube, and I'm going to be, there's going to be a Friday Q&A video, and there's going to be a few other topical videos that are coming out. So don't stop checking out my YouTube channel. Okay, back on topic. So efficiency. A lot of times we think that strength and efficiency are one and the same. They're not. And the way I notice that the body is confused about that is it shows up in the breathing. So that's how it's connected to what we were just talking about. So for example, I want to show you this movement and then see if you see the difference. So I'm going to show it to you 2 ways. The first way is going to be kind of, well, I'll show it to you first. See if you notice it. Here's a slow version of the same thing. Okay, so that's using the breath a little more dynamically, but it's also moving a little more forcefully. Compare that to this. I'm going to speed that up. And if you didn't notice a difference, I would encourage you to watch that again. What I did in the first version is that I made it about feeling strong in my body. And you see this kind of push-pull, and it looks a little bit constipated, okay? The second version was slower. It was almost harder to do it that way, faster, and here's why. Speed and force are often the enemies of efficiency. And they're often the enemies of accuracy. Okay, so we've got accuracy and efficiency are really our 2 big goals with movement. To be accurate and to be efficient. And you can be accurate and efficient, fast and slow, but speed is earned. Okay, so speed, load, range of motion are earned. And they're earned by learning those efficient patterns in a slower way, where we're not constipating the movement with force and strength. We're allowing our bodies to experience the movement, and we're using the breath to facilitate the right amount of engagement to do the job. So sometimes, and this is especially true with my equestrians, is that they have to have so much control in their movement, especially in terms of how they ride. They have to be so still that stillness turns into rigidity. And the rigidity turns into a dysfunction, which becomes very inefficient, and then the horse either has to compensate for it or is affected by it and acts out, is usually what happens. So we don't want rigidity. And that's where I would ask you to slow it down. And if you're going to a class that's very boot campy, and I'm not against those classes, by the way. The other day I did like a really hard high intensity interval class. It was very boot campy. It was like boot camp yoga. There's a time and place for those workouts. And I would even hesitate to call it yoga. It's more like high intensity calisthenics, really, more than yoga. You can do a down dog at the beginning and a child's pose at the end. That does not a yoga class make. But it was the kind of class I needed, because I really needed to stir my energy up, and I needed something that would make me sweat and just make me work every ounce of my energy out, because I needed that. However, I found myself during the class really checking in with, am I using brute force and strength to achieve this, or am I being efficient with this movement? And do I need to modify this for myself so that I don't use that brute force and strength to hurt myself? And that's where we have to be really careful about that sense of bracing, because when it becomes a dysfunction and we're trying to move things through force instead of through efficiency, that's where we get injured. That's where we kind of lead with our ego physically. And that's also where we are, we're not fully connected and we're not concentrating. We're just kind of surviving the exercise. And so if you're ever in class with me and you're in a moment where you're kind of mentally just surviving the exercise, that's an important experience to have. And it's an important thing to bring up when we're one-on-one. And so we can figure out, okay, what is it that needs to happen? What are the efficiency patterns you need to learn to make this exercise so that you're not just hanging on for dear life, but you actually know, or if this move is just a little bit above your pay grade, you can modify it. But you can only do all of that if you're here.